The entire courtroom burst into laughter when Darnell Carter slammed his ex-wife's bank statement on the table. $38. That's all Elena had. His lawyer called her a parasite. His 26-year-old girlfriend blew her a mocking kiss from the gallery. Elena sat alone. No lawyer, no makeup. Just a worn cardigan and trembling hands. But Darnell made one fatal mistake. He didn't know the woman he'd humiliated for 5 years wasn't just Elena the housewife anymore. He didn't know the failed candle business he just waived all rights to under oath was actually worth more than his entire empire. When she opens that manila envelope, Darnell won't just lose the case. He'll lose everything, including his freedom. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The wooden doors of Fulton County Superior Court slammed open as Darnell Carter strode in like he owned the building. And why wouldn't he think that he practically did? Darnell adjusted the cuffs of his $12,000 Tom Ford suit and scanned the courtroom with the casual arrogance of a man who had never been told no. At 45 years old, he had built Carter Development from nothing into an $80 million real estate empire. His face had graced the cover of Atlanta magazine twice. The mayor called him a visionary. The governor played golf with him on Sundays. Behind him walked Victoria Shaw, the most feared divorce attorney in Georgia. Her heels clicked against the marble floor like a countdown to destruction. Flanking her were 2 junior associates carrying boxes of documents ammunition for the massacre she had planned. And behind them, trying to keep up in heels she clearly wasn't used to, was Tiffany. 26 years old, former receptionist at Carter Development, current girlfriend, future ex-girlfriend, though she didn't know that yet. Tiffany was wearing a diamond tennis bracelet that Elena recognized immediately. It was supposed to be Elena's anniversary gift 3 years ago. Darnell had claimed it was stolen from their hotel room in Miami. Elena watched them enter from her seat at the defendant's table. She sat alone. No legal team, no family, no friends. Just her, a worn gray cardigan from Goodwill, and a canvas tote bag that had seen better days. She hadn't slept in 3 days. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking, but she kept them folded in her lap where no one could see. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Coleman. Everyone stood. Judge Coleman, a stern black woman in her 60s who had seen every trick in the book, took her seat and adjusted her reading glasses. Be seated. We are here today for the matter of Carter versus Carter final dissolution hearing. Ms. Shaw, you may begin. Victoria Shaw rose with the smooth confidence of a predator who had already tasted blood. Thank you, Your Honor. My client, Mr. Darnell Carter, has been more than patient throughout these proceedings. He has offered the defendant a generous settlement. Generous? Elena's voice cracked as she spoke without thinking. He offered me nothing. Judge Coleman's gaze snapped to Elena. Ms. Marsh, you are representing yourself. You will have your opportunity to speak. Do not interrupt opposing counsel. I apologize, Your Honor. Elena's cheeks burned. She could feel Darnell smirking without even looking at him. Victoria continued as if Elena hadn't spoken. As I was saying, Mr. Carter has been generous. He supported this woman for 5 years. He paid for her food, her clothing, her housing. He funded her little hobby business, which I might add has lost money every single year of its existence. Victoria picked up a document and held it up for the courtroom to see. Exhibit A, Your Honor, the defendant's bank statement from First National Bank. Her current balance is $38.12. A ripple of murmurs went through the small gallery. Someone actually laughed. Elena felt her face go hot. She stared at the table in front of her, unable to meet anyone's eyes. $38, Victoria repeated, letting the number hang in the air. This is the sum total of what this woman has accumulated during 5 years of marriage to one of Atlanta's most successful businessmen. Not because she was denied opportunity, Your Honor, but because she lacked the ambition to do anything with it. Darnell nodded slowly, his expression one of theatrical disappointment. Meanwhile, Victoria continued, my client built Carter Development into a real estate empire valued at over $80 million. He did this through his own intelligence, his own work ethic, and his own vision. The defendant's contribution to this success was, she paused, pretending to search her notes, decorating the house and hosting dinner parties. More laughter from the gallery. Elena recognized some of the voices: Darnell's business associates, his mother's church friends, people who used to smile at her at charity events, but had stopped returning her calls the moment the divorce was filed. The prenuptial agreement is clear, Victoria said. All business assets acquired during the marriage remain the sole property of the spouse who created them. Ms. Marsh signed this agreement freely and with full understanding of its terms. She walked slowly toward Elena's table, her heels marking each step like a death knell. Now, despite having no legal claim to my client's fortune, the defendant is demanding $5,000 per month in alimony. $5,000 a month to do absolutely nothing. Victoria turned to face the gallery, playing to her audience. She wants to be paid for existing. She wants a salary for breathing. Your Honor, my client has carried this woman for 5 years. He has supported her failed business ventures. He has tolerated her complete lack of ambition. And now that he has finally found happiness with someone who actually operates on his level. Victoria gestured toward Tiffany, who gave a small wave and a pitying smile. She wants to be rewarded for her mediocrity. Elena's hands were shaking so badly now that she had to press them flat against the table to stop them. She could feel tears threatening to fall and bit the inside of her cheek, hard enough to taste blood. Don't cry. Don't give them that satisfaction. We ask that the court enforce the prenuptial agreement as written, Victoria concluded. 0 alimony. The defendant leaves with her personal effects and her business such as it is. Mr. Carter keeps his company, the Buckhead Mansion, and the property in Sea Island. This is more than fair, Your Honor. It is frankly more than she deserves. Judge Coleman made a note, then looked at Elena over her glasses. Ms. Marsh, you chose to represent yourself in this matter. Do you have a response to opposing counsel's arguments? Elena stood. Her legs felt like they might give out beneath her. Yes, Your Honor, I do. She walked to the center of the room, clutching her canvas tote bag like a lifeline. She could feel every eye in the courtroom on her, judging her thrift store cardigan, her lack of jewelry, her bare face. Mr. Carter claims I contributed nothing to his success. But that's not true. Oh, here we go, Darnell muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. Mr. Carter. Judge Coleman's voice was sharp. One more outburst and I will hold you in contempt. My apologies, Your Honor. Darnell held up his hands, not looking sorry at all. Elena took a breath. When we were first married, Darnell needed $50,000 to close on his first development property. The banks wouldn't lend to him. His credit was ruined from a previous venture. He had nothing. Objection, Victoria said lazily. Irrelevant. Any seed investments were addressed in the prenup. I'm getting to that, Elena said. The $50,000 came from my inheritance, the only money my grandmother left me. I gave it to him because he said we were partners. He promised I would be part of everything he built. And he repaid that loan with interest, Victoria cut in. We have documentation. He repaid the principal, Elena corrected. 3 years later, after he had already made $2 million in profit, and he only repaid it because I begged him to so I could pay for my mother's medical bills. Judge Coleman's eyes narrowed slightly. Continue, Ms. Marsh. There's also the matter of the Chen deal. For the first time, Darnell's expression flickered. In 2019, Elena continued, Mr. Carter was pursuing a partnership with a Chinese investment group. The deal was worth $15 million. But the negotiations were falling apart because the translator he hired kept missing crucial cultural nuances. Mr. Chen was on the verge of walking away. Your Honor, I fail to see, Victoria began. I fixed it, Elena said. My parents were missionaries in Taiwan. I grew up speaking Mandarin. I spent 3 weeks rewriting every communication coaching Darnell on cultural protocols and personally interpreting during the final meetings. That deal was the foundation of Carter Development's expansion. Darnell laughed. You helped with some words, Elena. You didn't close the deal, I did. Because I taught you exactly what to say. Elena's voice rose before she could stop it. I wrote your talking points. I told you which gifts to bring, how to address Mr. Chen, when to speak, and when to stay silent. You were about to bow wrong and offend his entire family. Is bowing correctly now considered business equity? Darnell asked the room, spreading his hands. Should I pay her every time she tells me which fork to use at dinner? Laughter rippled through the gallery again. Even Victoria smiled. Judge Coleman held up her hand. Mr. Carter, I warned you. I apologize, Your Honor. It's just... Darnell shook his head, performing exasperation. She thinks helping with a few emails makes her entitled to half of everything I built. It's delusional. I'm not asking for half, Elena said quietly. The room went silent. Excuse me. Victoria's confident mask slipped for just a moment. I don't want alimony, Elena said. I withdraw that request. Darnell sat up straight. Wait, what? I don't want $5,000 a month. I don't want anything from him. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Darnell let out a loud exhale and turned to his lawyer. Finally, she's come to her senses. Can we wrap this up? Your Honor, I have a meeting at 4. However, Elena continued, and Darnell's celebration died mid-breath. I would like to discuss the assets, specifically my business. Darnell rolled his eyes. Oh, God. Here we go. She wants me to buy her candle shop. Fine. I'll give her $500 for the whole thing. That's probably more than it's worth. Your Honor, Elena said, her voice steadier now. I would like to ask Mr. Carter some questions about my business and his knowledge of it. Judge Coleman considered this. I'll allow it. Mr. Carter, please take the witness stand. Darnell sighed theatrically, but walked to the stand with the swagger of a man who had nothing to fear. He took the oath with his hand, barely touching the Bible, then settled into the chair like it was a throne. Elena approached. She didn't have a stack of files like Victoria. She had only the canvas tote bag, and from it she pulled a single thin manila envelope. Mr. Carter, what do you know about my business, Martian Light Candle Company? Darnell smirked. I know you make candles in the garage. I know you've lost money every year. I know I paid for all the supplies because you couldn't afford them yourself. And you've stated on the record that you want nothing to do with it. Correct. It's worthless, Elena. I don't want it. So you're waiving all rights to Martian Light Candle Company and any of its holdings or subsidiaries. Victoria sat up straighter. Something in Elena's tone had changed. Yes, Darnell said impatiently. I waive it. It's yours. Keep your candles. Sell them on Etsy. I don't care. Let the record show, Elena said, turning to the court reporter, that Mr. Carter has waived under oath all rights to Marsh and Light Candle Company LLC and all its subsidiaries and holdings in perpetuity. Your Honor, Victoria said, rising slowly, I'd like to review any documentation regarding this entity before we proceed. Too late, Elena said. He already said it, under oath. It's on the record. Judge Coleman nodded. The witness has made his position clear. Proceed, Ms. Marsh. Elena opened the manila envelope. Her hands had stopped shaking. Mr. Carter, do you remember 3 years ago when Carter Development was having problems with its property management software? Darnell frowned. What does that have to do with anything? The security authentication system kept failing. Tenant data was being exposed. You were about to lose the contract with Peachtree Residential Partners, your biggest client at the time. We fixed it, Darnell said. My tech team handled it. No, Elena said. They couldn't. You went through 3 different IT contractors. Nothing worked. You were 2 weeks away from losing the contract. Elena, what is the point of this? The point is that I fixed it. Darnell laughed. You don't know anything about software. I have a computer science degree from Georgia Tech, Darnell. I graduated with honors. You knew that when we met. You used to say it was attractive that I was smart. Before I realized you had no ambition to use it. I used it to save your company, Elena said. I spent 3 weeks rewriting your security authentication system. I rebuilt the entire architecture from scratch. On my own laptop. On my own time. That's ridiculous. Our systems were fixed by code that I wrote. Elena pulled a document from the envelope. This is a patent filing with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. The Carter Shield Security Protocol, filed 3 years ago. Victoria was on her feet. Your Honor. The patent, Elena continued, was filed under the name of Marsh & Light Candle Company, LLC. Because I wrote it on my own time on my own equipment, and as Mr. Carter so eloquently stated in his deposition, I was just a housewife who contributed nothing to his business. The courtroom had gone completely silent. You're lying, Darnell said, but his voice had lost its confidence. That's my company's software. My tech team maintains it. Your tech team maintains it, Elena agreed. But I own it. Every line of code that protects your tenant data, that secures your client portals, that makes Carter Development function as a modern company, it runs on my patent. She handed the document to the bailiff, who passed it to Judge Coleman. And since Mr. Carter just waived all rights to Marsh & Light and its holdings under oath, Elena said, he has legally surrendered any claim to the technology that runs his entire business. Judge Coleman studied the patent filing. Her eyebrows rose. Darnell stood up in the witness box. This is fraud. This is theft. She stole company secrets. Sit down, Mr. Carter. She's trying to destroy me. Mr. Carter, sit down, or I will have you removed. Darnell sat, but he was breathing hard, his perfect composure cracking. There's more, Elena said. More. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. Elena pulled another document from her envelope. Heavy cream-colored paper with gold embossing. The letterhead read, Private Wealth Management Bank of America. You mocked me for having $38 in my checking account, Elena said. You assumed that was all I had. It is all you have. But Darnell didn't sound sure anymore. That's my household account. The one you gave me a $400 monthly allowance for. But you didn't know about my inheritance. The $50,000? That's gone. I paid it back. Not that inheritance. Elena's voice was calm now, steady. My grandmother passed away 8 months ago. You were too busy to come to the funeral. You said you had a deal closing. Darnell's face went gray. My grandmother was Margaret Chen Whitmore. Victoria made a small sound. For those who don't know the name, Elena said, Margaret Chen came to America in 1952. Her father built 3 railroads in California. She married William Whitmore of the Boston Whitmores in 1960. When she died, her estate was valued at over $200 million. No, Darnell whispered. No, that's not you never said. She didn't like you, Darnell. She thought you were, and I'm quoting here a man who mistakes volume for value. She put my inheritance in a blind trust. I couldn't access it until I turned 40 or got divorced, whichever came first. Elena handed the bank statement to the bailiff. Judge Coleman read it. She took off her glasses, cleaned them, put them back on, and read it again. Ms. Marsh, the judge said slowly. Is this figure correct? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Carter, Judge Coleman said, looking at Darnell with an expression that might have been pity or might have been disgust. You mocked your wife for having $38. According to this certified statement, Ms. Marsh currently possesses liquid assets in excess of $165 million. The gasp that went through the courtroom was like a physical wave. Tiffany's mouth fell open. She looked at Darnell, then at Elena, then back at Darnell doing rapid calculations that clearly weren't working in her favor. 165 million, Judge Coleman repeated. That's approximately twice the value of your entire company, Mr. Carter. Darnell gripped the railing of the witness box. His designer suit suddenly looked wrong on him, like a costume he had borrowed and would have to return. That's impossible. She's lying. She has to be lying. She's nobody. I am nobody. Elena agreed, looking directly at him for the first time. I'm just the ex-wife you tried to crush. The woman you called worthless in front of all your friends. The woman whose bank statement you waved around this courtroom like a trophy. She took a step closer to the witness stand. But here's the thing, Darnell. I don't want your money. I never did. I have plenty of my own. Then what do you want? His voice was barely audible. Justice. Elena turned back to Judge Coleman. Your Honor, since Marsh & Light Candle Company owns the patent to the Carter Shield security protocol, I am formally issuing a cease and desist order. Carter Development is using my technology without a license. I am requesting that they shut down all digital operations immediately. Victoria shot to her feet. Your Honor, this is outrageous. This is ambush litigation. It's not an ambush, Elena said calmly. It's business. The same business my husband said I knew nothing about. Your Honor, we need time to review these documents. We need... Ms. Shaw, Judge Coleman said, and her voice was ice. Your client just waived all rights to the defendant's business holdings under oath, unprompted, after mocking her for her poverty. In my courtroom. Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it. Court is in recess for 1 hour, Judge Coleman announced. Mr. Carter, Ms. Shaw, I strongly suggest you use this time to reconsider your position. If what Ms. Marsh says is true, this divorce proceeding has just become something much more complicated. She banged her gavel. All rise. Elena gathered her documents and walked toward the doors. She didn't look back at Darnell. She didn't need to. Behind her, she heard his voice high and desperate. Elena! Elena, wait! But she was already gone. Darnell caught up to Elena in the marble hallway outside the courtroom. His Italian leather shoes slapped against the floor as he half ran, half stumbled after her. The composed billionaire from 5 minutes ago was gone. In his place was a man whose entire world had just cracked down the middle. Elena, stop. She kept walking toward the elevators. He grabbed her shoulder and spun her around. You don't walk away from me. Elena looked down at his hand, then up at his face. Her expression was ice. Take your hand off me, Darnell. That's assault. And unlike an hour ago, I can now afford better lawyers than you can. He released her like she'd burned him. Victoria Shaw and Tiffany were hurrying toward them from the courtroom. Victoria's heels clicked frantically against the marble. Her face had lost all its courtroom confidence. She looked like a woman watching her career implode in real time. This is a con, Darnell said, his voice rising. This is some kind of sick joke. You don't have $165 million. You've been wearing thrift store clothes for 3 years. Because I like them, Elena said simply. And because my grandmother taught me that people who need to show their wealth don't actually have any. Your grandmother was a railroad heiress, and you never thought to mention that in 5 years of marriage, you never asked. Elena tilted her head. Actually, that's not true. You never listened. I told you about her on our 3rd date. You were too busy checking your phone to hear me. Darnell's jaw tightened. So this was your plan. Play the poor little housewife, let me think I was supporting you, and then... There was no plan, Darnell. I loved you. I actually genuinely loved you. Elena's voice cracked just for a moment. I gave you my grandmother's first inheritance because I believed in you. I spent 5 years supporting your dreams, hosting your parties, translating your deals and fixing your software. And you repaid me by sleeping with your receptionist and telling everyone I was worthless. Tiffany arrived just in time to hear that last part. She stopped short, her face flushing. This isn't about the money, Elena continued. It never was. This is about the fact that you looked at me in that courtroom and laughed. You waved my bank statement around like a trophy. You wanted to humiliate me. I wanted a fair divorce. You wanted to crush me. Elena's eyes were steady. You wanted me to crawl out of that courtroom with nothing, so you could tell all your friends how you finally got rid of the deadweight. Well, congratulations, Darnell. You got exactly what you asked for. You waived all rights to my company, under oath, in front of a judge. Victoria finally reached them slightly out of breath. Mr. Carter, we need to talk privately. Now. Fix this, Darnell snapped at her without taking his eyes off Elena. That's what I pay you for. Fix it. I can't fix it. You waived the rights voluntarily. No one coerced you. No one tricked you. You did it yourself because you were too arrogant to even consider that her business might have value. Then unwaive it. File a motion. Claim fraud. On what grounds? Victoria's voice was sharp. She filed the patent 3 years ago. It's been public record this entire time. You could have looked it up. Any competent due diligence would have found it. You didn't do due diligence because you assumed she was worthless. That's not fraud, Mr. Carter. That's your own hubris. Darnell turned back to Elena. Something shifted in his expression. The anger was giving way to something else. Desperation. Fear. Elena. His voice softened. He reached for her hand. Baby, look. We can work this out. We don't have to destroy each other. We were good together once, remember, before all this mess. Elena pulled her hand away. The mess was your mistress Darnell. It was a mistake. Tiffany was a mistake. I see that now. He said this directly in front of Tiffany, who made a small choking sound. We can go to counseling. We can try again. Just turn the software back on. Don't destroy what I built. What you built? Elena laughed. It was not a kind sound. You built a facade. I built the foundation. And now I'm repossessing it. Elena, please. Lady Vance will not be negotiating in hallways, Mr. Carter. The voice came from the elevators. It was deep, authoritative, and carried the weight of old money and older power. A man stepped into the hallway. He was in his late 60s with silver hair and the kind of suit that didn't have a visible brand, because people who wore suits like that didn't need brands. He carried a leather briefcase that looked like it had seen the inside of the Supreme Court. Victoria Shaw went pale. Harrison Cole. Darnell looked at his lawyer. Who is this? Harrison Cole, Victoria whispered. Senior partner at Cole Pemberton and Associates. He represents half the old families in Georgia. He doesn't do divorce court. I do when the client is the granddaughter of my godmother, Harrison said, walking to Elena's side. He placed a protective hand on her shoulder. Hello, Elena. Margaret would be proud of you. Thank you, Harrison. I'm sorry to drag you into this circus. Nonsense. Harrison turned his steel-gray eyes to Darnell. Mr. Carter, I've been watching from the gallery. Quite a performance you gave in there. Mocking a woman's poverty while sitting next to your mistress. Very classy. Now listen here, Darnell started. I'm not finished. Harrison's voice didn't rise, but something in it made Darnell step back. You've spent 5 years treating my client like a servant. You've belittled her intelligence, ignored her contributions, and flaunted your infidelity in her face. And today in open court, you waived all rights to the intellectual property that powers your entire company. He pulled a document from his briefcase and handed it to Darnell. What is this? A cease and desist order regarding the Carter Shield Security Protocol. You are currently using patented technology without a license from the patent holder, Marsh and Light Candle Company, LLC. As of this moment, you are in violation of federal patent law. You can't do this. Darnell's voice cracked. I have live clients, banks, medical offices, property management for 3,000 units. Then I suggest you negotiate a licensing fee, Elena said. But I should warn you, the price just went up significantly. Darnell's phone buzzed. Then again. Then it started vibrating continuously. He pulled it out, his hands shaking. His face went gray as he read the messages. What? What is happening? I had Harrison send the cease and desist to your CTO while I was in the courtroom, Elena said. Your tech team is very efficient. They've already begun the shutdown process. You're going to destroy my company over a divorce. I'm enforcing my legal rights over my intellectual property. Elena's voice was calm. Something you said I knew nothing about. Victoria grabbed Darnell's arm. We need to go to the office, now. We need to contain this before it spreads to the press. Darnell looked at Elena with something that might have been hatred, or might have been fear, maybe both. This isn't over, he said. No. Elena agreed. It's not. But for the first time in 5 years, I'm the one who gets to decide how it ends. She turned and walked toward the elevators with Harrison Cole. She didn't look back. Tiffany stood frozen in the hallway watching the scene unfold. Darnell was already on his phone screaming at someone, his CTO, his investors she couldn't tell. Victoria was trying to calm him down, but her own hands were shaking. Tiffany did the math. She was 26. She wasn't married to Darnell. She had no legal claim to anything. If his company went down, she had nothing. Less than nothing, she was wearing jewelry he'd bought with company money, living in an apartment he paid for, driving a car, registered in his name. She looked at Elena, disappearing into the elevator calm and composed, richer than Darnell had ever been. Then she looked at Darnell, sweating through his $12,000 suit, screaming into his phone like a man watching his life collapse. The choice wasn't hard. She pulled out her own phone and quietly stepped away. 2 hours later, Elena sat in Harrison Cole's office in Buckhead. The room was all dark wood and leather, lined with law books and framed photographs of Harrison with governors, senators, and 2 presidents. The injunction is holding, Harrison said, pouring 2 glasses of sweet tea from a crystal pitcher. His grandmother would have been appalled at the informality, but Elena had always preferred sweet tea to scotch. Victoria Shaw filed an emergency motion to lift it, but Judge Coleman denied it. She was not pleased with Mr. Carter's behavior in her courtroom. I imagine not. Elena accepted the glass. What happens now? Now we wait. Carter Development is hemorrhaging money every minute those servers are down. He'll have to negotiate. I don't want to destroy him, Harrison. I just want... Elena paused. I don't know what I want. I spent so long surviving that I forgot to think about what comes after. Your grandmother used to say the same thing about your grandfather. Harrison smiled. She spent 40 years managing his moods, and when he finally died, she said she had to learn who she was all over again. A knock on the door interrupted them. Come in, Harrison called. His secretary, a severe woman named Mrs. Patterson, who had worked for the firm since the Reagan administration, entered with an unusual expression on her face. Sir, there's a young woman at the reception desk. She says it's urgent. She says she has information for Lady Elena. Elena frowned. Who is it? She says her name is Tiffany. Harrison raised an eyebrow. The mistress, interesting. Should I send her away, sir? No. Elena stood. Let her in. I want to hear what she has to say. 5 minutes later, Tiffany was ushered into the office. She looked different than she had in the courtroom, smaller somehow, younger. The expensive clothes and jewelry now looked like a costume she'd borrowed. Her eyes were red from crying. Elena? Tiffany said, clutching her designer purse like a shield. I didn't know where else to go. This is a surprise. Elena didn't invite her to sit. Usually you're sending me photos of you and Darnell on vacation. Tiffany flinched. I deserve that. I know I do. I was awful to you. Darnell told me you were cold and controlling. He said you didn't appreciate him. He said what? He said you were holding him back, that you were jealous of his success. Tiffany's voice broke. I believed him because I wanted to. Because it was easier than admitting I was a homewrecker. What changed? The parking garage. Tiffany took a shaky breath. After you left, Darnell completely lost it. He was screaming at everyone, Victoria, his assistant me. He grabbed my arm so hard it bruised. She pulled up her sleeve. Purple finger marks were already forming. And then he said something about the Cayman accounts, about how he had to get to the office and shred documents before you sent a discovery team. Harrison set down his tea. What exactly did he say? He said he had money hidden that you could never find, and that if the servers stayed down much longer, someone might start looking at why. Elena and Harrison exchanged a look. There's more. Tiffany reached into her purse and pulled out a USB drive. It was small, unremarkable, the kind you could buy at any office supply store. Darnell is sloppy. He thinks everyone around him is stupid. He used to make me sync his phone and laptop because he couldn't be bothered to wait for it himself. And he forgot I had his passwords. Tiffany held out the USB drive. Her hand was trembling. This is a backup of his personal files, not the company files, his private stuff, the stuff he kept in a hidden folder. Elena took the drive. It felt light in her hand, but she knew it was heavy with consequences. Why are you giving this to me? Elena asked. You could have used this to leverage him yourself, demanded a payout to stay quiet. Tiffany laughed bitterly. Because I'm not smart enough to know what to do with it. And because... She hesitated. Because when he grabbed my arm in that parking garage, he looked at me exactly the way he used to look at you. Like I was nothing. Like I was just a thing he owned. She wiped her eyes. There's a folder on there called Project Greenlight. I don't know what it is, but whenever Darnell opened it, he looked scared. Really scared. I think that's where the bad stuff is. Harrison stood. Elena, we should examine this immediately. If he's hiding assets, we need to know before he destroys the evidence. Elena nodded. She turned back to Tiffany. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. Tiffany shook her head. I was sleeping with your husband. I wore your anniversary bracelet to your divorce hearing. I'm not a good person, Elena. I know that. But I'm not going to prison for him, and I'm not going to let him hurt anyone else the way he hurt me today. Elena studied her for a long moment. This wasn't the confident, smirking woman from the courtroom. This was a scared 26-year-old who had just realized she'd built her life on a foundation of lies. Harrison, is there a laptop we can use, something not connected to any network? I have an air-gapped machine in the conference room for sensitive client matters. Let's look at what Tiffany brought us. The conference room was sparse, just a long mahogany table and a single laptop. Harrison booted up the machine while Elena inserted the USB drive. The folder structure was surprisingly organized for a man as chaotic as Darnell. There were subfolders for personal expenses, offshore accounts, and real estate holdings. But the folder that caught Elena's eye was exactly where Tiffany said it would be. Project Greenlight. Elena double-clicked. The folder contained spreadsheets, hundreds of them. Transaction records, bank transfers, invoices from contractors. At first glance, it looked like normal business records. Then Elena started reading the details. Oh my God, she whispered. What is it? Harrison leaned in. These aren't normal transactions. Elena's face had gone pale. Look at this. Carter Development has been billing for renovations on properties that were never renovated. They're filing permits for work that was never done. And these inspection reports. She pointed to a column of names. These are city inspectors. And next to each name is a payment. 50,000, 75,000, 100,000. He's bribing inspectors, Harrison said slowly, to approve buildings that weren't properly renovated. It's worse than that. Elena clicked on another spreadsheet. Her hands were shaking again, but not from fear, from anger. Look at this property. Carter Pines Apartments, 300 units, Low-income housing. I know that property. It's one of his biggest developments. According to these records, the structural reinforcement that was supposed to be done in 2022 was never completed. Darnell billed the investors for it, pocketed the money, and paid the inspector to sign off. She clicked on another file, an email chain. This is from his structural engineer, 8 months ago, warning him that the building has significant foundation issues, recommending immediate evacuation and repair. What was Darnell's response? Elena scrolled down. Her voice was hollow when she read aloud, "Handle it quietly. If this gets out, we're done. Pay whoever you need to pay." Harrison sat back heavily. 300 families, living in a building that could collapse. There's more. Elena was clicking through folders faster now. Carter Gardens, 200 units, same thing. Pine Valley Townhomes, 150 units, same thing. She looked at Harrison. How many families is that? How many people are living in buildings that Darnell knew were unsafe? 800, maybe more. The room was silent. Tiffany, who had followed them to the conference room, covered her mouth with her hand. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was this bad. This isn't just about money anymore, Elena said quietly. This isn't about the divorce or the patent or my grandmother's inheritance. This is about 800 families who could die because my husband was too greedy to do the right thing. Her phone rang. The number was blocked, but something made her answer it. Hello. You think you're smart, don't you? Darnell's voice came through the speaker, distorted and manic. There was background noise, industrial sounds like machines running. Darnell, where are you? I'm at the office, cleaning up your mess. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You turned off my servers. Fine. But you forgot one thing, Elena. All those documents you're probably looking at right now, they exist on paper too, and paper burns. Elena's blood went cold. Darnell, don't. Don't what? Don't protect myself. You started this war, Elena. You could have taken your $38 and walked away, but you had to be clever. You had to humiliate me. Those records, the building inspections, Darnell, if you destroy those, no one will know which buildings are unsafe. People could die. Then I guess they shouldn't have rented from me. His voice was ice. In 30 minutes, there won't be any evidence of anything. No green light files, no inspection records, nothing. It'll just be your word against mine. And who's going to believe the bitter ex-wife? The line went dead. Elena looked at Harrison. We have to stop him. I'm calling the police. That'll take too long. If he destroys those records... Elena, you can't go there yourself. He's unstable. 800 families, Harrison. Maybe more. Elena was already moving toward the door. I spent 5 years being the woman who didn't make waves, who didn't cause problems, who let Darnell do whatever he wanted because it was easier than fighting. She stopped at the door and turned back. I'm not that woman anymore. She ran. Harrison's driver broke every speed limit between Buckhead and downtown Atlanta. Elena sat in the back seat, her phone pressed to her ear, trying to reach anyone who could help. Atlanta Police Department, what is your emergency? I need officers at Carter Development Headquarters immediately. 1200 Peachtree Street. A man is about to destroy evidence of criminal activity. Ma'am, can you describe the nature of the emergency? He's going to burn documents, building inspection records. There are unsafe buildings with hundreds of families. Ma'am, document destruction isn't typically an emergency response situation. I can transfer you to our non-emergency line. People could die. If those records are destroyed, no one will know which buildings need to be evacuated. I understand you're upset, ma'am. Let me transfer you to... Elena hung up and immediately dialed another number. Harrison, the police won't respond fast enough. They think I'm a hysterical woman calling about paperwork. Harrison's voice came through the car's speaker system. He was still at his office, coordinating from there. I'm calling the fire marshal's office. If he's planning to start a fire in a commercial building, that's a different jurisdiction. I'm also reaching out to a contact at the FBI, Financial Crimes Division. That'll take hours. He said 30 minutes. Elena, listen to me. Do not go into that building alone. Darnell is unstable. We don't know what he's capable of. I know exactly what he's capable of. I lived with him for 5 years. The car screeched to a halt in front of Carter Development Headquarters. The building was a glass and steel monument to Darnell's ego. 20 stories of modern architecture that had been featured in Architectural Digest twice. The lobby was dark. Emergency lights flickered red near the elevators. "Ma'am, I can't let you go in there," the driver said. "Mr. Cole gave me strict instructions." But Elena was already out of the car running toward the entrance. The front doors were locked. Of course they were. After hours, the building required a key card to enter. Elena didn't have one anymore. Darnell had deactivated her access the day he filed for divorce. She circled to the side entrance, the one the cleaning crew used. Also locked. Think. Then she remembered. 3 years ago, when she was debugging the security system, she had created a backdoor. A master override code in case of emergencies. She had never told Darnell about it because she never trusted him not to misuse it. Elena found the maintenance panel near the loading dock. Her fingers flew across the keypad. 772-4**911. The panel beeped. A small light turned green. "Welcome, Administrator," a mechanical voice said. The door clicked open. Elena ran inside. The stairwell was pitch black. She used her phone's flashlight to navigate, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Her lungs burned. Her thrift store flats weren't made for sprinting up 16 flights of stairs. Darnell's office was on the 16th floor. So was the records room, a fireproof vault where he kept paper copies of everything important. He was paranoid about digital storage. Always had been. He'd said too many times that you couldn't hack a filing cabinet. She burst through the stairwell door onto the 16th floor. The smell hit her immediately. Smoke. Not heavy yet, but unmistakable. Darnell. No answer. Elena ran down the hallway toward the records room. The door was open. Inside, she could see the flickering orange glow of flames. Darnell was there. He had emptied filing cabinets onto the floor, hundreds of folders, thousands of documents scattered like confetti. In the center of the room, a metal trash can was burning, fed by a steady stream of papers he was feeding into it. He looked up when she entered. His tie was gone. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His eyes were wild. "Elena," he laughed. Of course you're here. You just couldn't let me have anything. Could you?" "Darnell, stop, please. You don't know what you're destroying." "I know exactly what I'm destroying." He grabbed another handful of documents and threw them into the flames. "Evidence. Your precious evidence. Without these, it's just your word against mine. And nobody believes the bitter ex-wife. Those are building inspection records, safety reports. If you destroy them, no one will know which buildings need to be evacuated." "Good." Darnell's voice was ice. "Then nobody can prove anything." 800 families, Darnell. Children, elderly people, living in buildings you knew were unsafe. They're fine. The buildings are fine. Everyone's overreacting. Your own engineer warned you. I saw the emails. He told you Carter Pines could collapse. Darnell froze for a moment. Then his face hardened. "You shouldn't have seen those emails, Elena. That was private company business." "Private company business." Elena stepped closer. "You're talking about people's lives like they're line items on a spreadsheet." "They are line items," Darnell screamed, throwing another pile into the fire. "Everything is a line item. That's how business works. You think I got to where I am by worrying about every single person. You think any successful businessman does. You're not successful, Darnell. You're a fraud. You built your empire on bribery and cutting corners and putting people in danger. I built my empire on being smart. He jabbed a finger at her. Smarter than the regulators. Smarter than the inspectors. Smarter than you. If you were so smart, why did you need me to save your company 3 years ago? Why did you need me to translate your deals? Why did you need my grandmother's money to get started? Darnell's face contorted with rage. I didn't need you. I never needed you. You were just convenient. A quiet little wife who didn't ask questions and made me look good at parties. Then why did you marry me? The question stopped him cold. What? If I was so worthless, if I was such a burden, if I contributed nothing, why did you marry me, Darnell? You could have had anyone. Why me? For a moment something flickered in his eyes, something almost human. Because you believed in me, he said quietly. When nobody else did. When I was nothing. You looked at me like I was already the man I wanted to be. And what happened to that man? He realized that belief doesn't pay the bills. Darnell's voice hardened again. He realized that nice guys finish last, that the only way to win is to make sure everyone else loses. So you cheated. On your taxes, on your buildings, on me. I did what I had to do. No. Elena shook her head. You did what was easy. There's a difference. Darnell stared at her. The fire in the trash can crackled. Smoke was thickening in the room now, curling against the ceiling. It's too late anyway, he said. Half the records are already gone. You can't stop what's already happened. Maybe not, but I can stop what happens next. Elena pulled out her phone. What are you doing? I have the digital copies, Darnell. Tiffany gave them to me. Every spreadsheet, every email, every bribe you ever paid. Project Greenlight is already in Harrison Cole's hands, and in about 10 minutes it's going to be in the FBI's hands too. Darnell's face went white. Tiffany gave you no she wouldn't. She loves me. She loved your money, and when she found out you might not have any soon, she made a different choice. That little I'll kill her. You'll what? Elena stepped forward. Add murder to the list. You're already looking at fraud, bribery, reckless endangerment. How many more years do you want to add? Darnell grabbed the fire poker from beside the trash can. He raised it like a weapon. Give me the phone. No. Give me the phone, Elena. Or what? You'll hit me in front of the security cameras that I designed, the ones that are recording right now and backing up to a cloud server you don't have access to. Darnell glanced up at the corner of the room. A small red light blinked on the security camera. You're bluffing. I'm not. I wrote the security protocols, remember. When I shut down your servers, I kept the surveillance system running on a separate network. Everything that's happened in this building tonight is being recorded, including you destroying evidence, including you threatening me with that poker. The poker trembled in Darnell's hand. This is illegal. You can't surveil private property without consent. It's your property, your surveillance system. I just made sure it kept working. Elena's voice was steady. Put the poker down, Darnell. It's over. It's not over until I say it's over. He lunged at her. Elena dodged, but she wasn't fast enough. The poker caught her shoulder, sending her spinning into a filing cabinet. Pain exploded through her arm. Darnell raised the poker again. You ruined everything I had, everything under control, until you decided to be clever. Drop the weapon. The voice came from the doorway. 3 police officers stood there, weapons drawn. Behind them, Elena could see the flashing lights of fire trucks through the windows. Atlanta PD, drop the weapon and step away from the woman. Darnell spun around. For a moment, he looked like he might swing at the officers. Do it, Darnell, Elena said from the floor, clutching her shoulder. Add assaulting an officer to the list. Make it easier for them. Something broke in Darnell's face. The poker clattered to the floor. On your knees, hands behind your head. Darnell sank to the ground. His designer suit was ruined, covered in soot and sweat. His face was streaked with tears. He probably didn't even know he was crying. "This isn't my fault," he said, as the officers moved in. "None of this is my fault. She pushed me. She trapped me. I was trying to protect my business." "You have the right to remain silent," the officer said, pulling Darnell's hands behind his back. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." "I want my lawyer. I want Victoria Shaw. She'll fix this." "You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be provided for you." "Do you know who I am?" Darnell screamed as they hauled him to his feet. "I'm Darnell Carter. I own half of downtown Atlanta. You can't do this to me." "Sir, I'd strongly recommend you exercise your right to remain silent." They dragged him toward the door. As he passed Elena still sitting against the filing cabinet, he stopped struggling just long enough to look at her. "You destroyed me," he said. "I hope you're happy." Elena met his eyes. "I didn't destroy you, Darnell. You destroyed yourself. I just stopped covering it up." They took him away. A paramedic appeared at Elena's side. "Ma'am, are you hurt? Can you tell me where you feel pain?" "My shoulder. He hit me with the fire poker." "Okay, let's get you checked out. Can you stand?" Elena nodded. The paramedic helped her to her feet. Through the smoke-hazed window, she could see Darnell being loaded into the back of a police car. The lights painted his face in alternating red and blue. Harrison Cole appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath, and looking more disheveled than Elena had ever seen him. "Elena! Thank God. When the police got here and said there was a fire..." "I'm okay. The paramedic says it's probably just a deep bruise." Harrison looked around the records room. The fire was out now, extinguished by the sprinkler system that had finally kicked in. The floor was covered in soggy, charred documents. "How much did he destroy?" "I don't know. Maybe half, but it doesn't matter." Elena allowed herself a small smile despite the pain. "We have the digital copies. Everything that was on that USB drive. The paper copies were just backup." Harrison let out a breath. That's good. That's very good. The FBI is sending agents tonight. They want to see the Project Greenlight files immediately." "What about the buildings, the unsafe ones?" "I've already contacted the city fire marshal. They're assembling teams to inspect Carter Pines, Carter Gardens, and Pine Valley tonight. If there's any structural danger, they'll evacuate." "Tonight you got them to move tonight." Harrison smiled grimly. "I may have mentioned that if anything happened to those residents while the city was aware of potential danger, the liability would be significant. The mayor called me personally to assure me they're taking it seriously." Elena sagged against the filing cabinet. The adrenaline was fading, and exhaustion was rushing in to fill the space. "It's really over, isn't it?" "The marriage is over. The cover-up is over. But I suspect, Elena, that your story is just beginning." 3 hours later, Elena sat in the emergency room of Grady Memorial Hospital. Her shoulder was wrapped in bandages. The injury wasn't serious, just a deep contusion that would heal in a few weeks. The doctor had given her painkillers and told her to rest. Rest. As if that were possible. Harrison sat beside her, scrolling through his phone. He had been fielding calls all night from the FBI, from the mayor's office, from reporters who had somehow already gotten wind of the story. "Carter Pines has been evacuated," he said, looking up from his phone. "All 300 units. The fire marshal found significant foundation cracking on the west side of the building. They're calling it a miracle it hasn't collapsed already." Elena closed her eyes. 300 families. How did I not know? "You couldn't have known. Darnell kept it hidden from everyone, even his own board. I lived with him. I shared a bed with him. I should have seen." "Elena." Harrison's voice was gentle. "Predators survive by hiding what they are. Darnell fooled investors, regulators, inspectors, and lawyers. He fooled everyone. The fact that you uncovered the truth doesn't make you complicit in the lies." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Ms. Marsh, there's someone here to see you, a young woman. She says her name is Tiffany. Elena and Harrison exchanged glances. "Send her in." Tiffany entered the hospital room looking even smaller than she had at Harrison's office. Her makeup was smeared from crying. She was wearing different clothes now, jeans and a simple blouse instead of the designer outfit from the courtroom. "Elena, I heard what happened. I heard Darnell hurt you. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." "How is this your fault?" "I should have given you that USB drive sooner. I should have told someone about Project Greenlight months ago. I saw those folders. I knew something was wrong. But I was too scared to look, too scared to know." "Sit down, Tiffany." Tiffany sat on the edge of the empty bed across from Elena. Her hands were shaking. "The police called me," Tiffany said. "They want me to come in tomorrow for questioning. They said I might be called as a witness. Against Darnell." Tiffany nodded. "His lawyer called me too, Victoria Shaw. She said if I testify, Darnell will claim I stole those files illegally. She said I could be charged with corporate espionage." "Is that why you're here, to ask me to protect you?" Tiffany looked up, her eyes wet. "No. I'm here to tell you that I'm going to testify anyway. Whatever happens to me, I deserve it. But those families in those buildings, they don't deserve what Darnell did to them. They trusted him. They paid rent every month thinking they were safe. And he knew. He knew the whole time." She wiped her eyes. "I was young and stupid and greedy. I saw a rich, powerful man who paid attention to me and I didn't ask questions. But I'm not going to be that person anymore, even if it means going to prison." Elena studied her for a long moment. This wasn't the same woman who had blown a mocking kiss across the courtroom that morning. This was someone who had looked into the abyss and finally seen it looking back. "Harrison," Elena said, "can you help her? I can refer her to a good defense attorney, someone who specializes in whistleblower protections." "Whistleblower?" Tiffany looked confused. "You provided evidence of criminal activity to law enforcement," Harrison explained. "That potentially qualifies you for protection under federal whistleblower statutes. If we frame this correctly, you won't be a co-conspirator, you'll be a cooperating witness." "But I was sleeping with him. I took jewelry he bought with company money. I'm not innocent." "None of us are innocent," Elena said quietly. "But you came forward when it mattered. That counts for something." Tiffany broke down completely. She sobbed into her hands, her whole body shaking. "Why are you helping me? After everything I did to you, I sent you pictures of us together. I wore your bracelet to your divorce hearing. I was horrible." "Yes," Elena agreed. "You were." She reached out with her uninjured arm and placed her hand on Tiffany's. "But holding on to anger at you isn't going to help those 800 families. And it's not going to give me back the 5 years I wasted on Darnell. The only thing I can do now is move forward. And that means letting go of the people who don't matter anymore." Tiffany looked at her hand, then at Elena's face. "You really are different from what he said. He said you were cold and vindictive. He said you'd destroy anyone who crossed you." "Darnell said a lot of things. Most of them were lies." Elena pulled her hand back. "Go home, Tiffany. Get some sleep. Call the lawyer Harrison recommends. And when the FBI asks you questions, tell them the truth, all of it." Tiffany stood wiping her face. "Thank you, Elena. I don't deserve it, but thank you." She left. Harrison waited until her footsteps faded down the hall before speaking. "That was generous of you. It was practical. We need her testimony to make the case against Darnell airtight." "It was also generous." Harrison smiled. "Your grandmother would be proud." Elena leaned back against the hospital pillows. Her shoulder throbbed, but the pain felt distant somehow. Everything felt distant. The courtroom, the confrontation with Darnell, the fire in the records room, it all seemed like it had happened to someone else. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now the FBI will build their case, the city will inspect the buildings, the press will have a field day, and you—" Harrison paused. "You'll have to decide what kind of life you want to live." What do you mean? As of this morning, you were a quiet ex-wife with a candle shop. As of tonight, you're the woman who exposed one of Atlanta's biggest real estate frauds. By tomorrow, every news outlet in the country will want to interview you. Every business magazine will want your story. You'll have opportunities, Elena. More opportunities than you can imagine. Elena thought about it. The old Elena, the one who darned Darnell's socks and hosted his dinner parties and stayed quiet when he dismissed her in front of his friends, that woman would have been terrified. But she wasn't that woman anymore. I want to help those families, she said finally. The ones from the evacuated buildings. They're going to need somewhere to stay. Legal help to get their deposits back. Support to rebuild their lives. That could be arranged. Your grandmother left you more than enough to fund a foundation. A foundation. Elena tested the word. The Marsh Foundation. Or maybe the Safe Home Foundation. Something that means something. I think that's an excellent idea. Elena closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt something she had almost forgotten how to recognize. Hope. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Hello? Ms. Marsh. This is Special Agent Rebecca Torres with the FBI Financial Crimes Division. I understand you have some documents we need to see. Yes, Elena said, sitting up despite the pain in her shoulder. I do. When can we meet? How does first thing tomorrow morning sound? We're very interested in what you have to tell us about Project Greenlight. I'll be there. She hung up and looked at Harrison. The FBI, she said. Tomorrow morning. Then you should get some rest. Harrison stood and gathered his coat. Tomorrow is going to be a very long day. Harrison, Elena called as he reached the door. Yes? Thank you. For everything. For being here. For believing me when no one else did. Harrison smiled. I've known you since you were 7 years old, Elena. You used to sit in my office and do your homework while your grandmother had her meetings. You've always been the smartest person in any room you're in. It just took you a while to realize it. He left. Elena lay back against the pillows and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere across the city, Darnell Carter was sitting in a jail cell waiting for his lawyer to post bail. Somewhere, 800 families were being relocated to emergency shelters, their lives upended because of one man's greed. Somewhere, reporters were already writing the first drafts of a story that would dominate headlines for months. And here in this hospital room, Elena Marsh, formerly Elena. Carter, formerly the quiet wife no one noticed, was finally free. Her shoulder throbbed. Her eyes were heavy. But she smiled as she drifted off to sleep. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. 3 months passed like a fever dream. Elena spent the first week in meetings with the FBI. Special Agent Rebecca Torres was thorough, methodical, and relentless. She went through every file on that USB drive line by line, asking questions Elena hadn't even thought to ask. This payment here, Torres said, pointing to a spreadsheet. $75,000 to James Holloway. Who is he? I don't know. Torres typed the name into her computer. Chief Building Inspector for Fulton County. Retired last year with a full pension. Retired or was pushed out? Torres looked at Elena with something like respect. That's exactly the right question, Ms. Marsh. The investigation spread like wildfire. Every person Darnell had bribed, every contractor he had paid off, every inspector who had looked the other way. They all became dominoes, falling in sequence. Some cooperated immediately, desperate to save themselves. Others tried to run. One inspector, a man named Gerald Patterson, who had signed off on Carter Pines despite knowing about the structural issues, was arrested trying to board a flight to Mexico. The news coverage was relentless. Atlanta real estate mogul arrested in massive fraud scheme. Carter Development, a house of cards built on bribes. The woman who brought down an empire, Elena Marsh's story. Elena refused every interview request. She had Harrison Cole release a single statement on her behalf. My only concern is the safety of the families affected by Carter Development's negligence. I ask that the media respect their privacy during this difficult time." The evacuated families became her focus. 847 people displaced from 3 buildings. Many of them had nowhere else to go. They had paid deposits they couldn't recover, signed leases they couldn't break, trusted a company that had betrayed them. Elena used her grandmother's money to set up emergency housing. She hired lawyers to help families recover their deposits. She created a fund to cover moving expenses, temporary lodging, and the countless small costs that came with having your life uprooted overnight. "You don't have to do this," Harrison told her one evening, watching her review applications for assistance. "The city has resources. The Red Cross is involved. You could step back." "I can't step back," Elena said. "I lived in that penthouse for 5 years while Darnell was cutting corners on buildings where real people lived. I hosted parties that cost more than some of these families make in a year. I didn't know what he was doing, but I benefited from it. This is the least I can do." The trial was set for October. Darnell's bail was set at $10 million, an amount that would have been pocket change 6 months ago. But with his assets frozen and his company in receivership, he couldn't make it. He sat in the Fulton County Jail for 3 months, watching everything he had built crumble from behind bars. Victoria Shaw dropped him as a client after the first week. "Conflict of interest," she claimed, though everyone knew the real reason Darnell couldn't pay her fees anymore, and she didn't want her name attached to what was clearly a losing case. He cycled through 3 more lawyers before finally ending up with a public defender named Marcus Williams, a tired, overworked man who did his best but was clearly outmatched. The morning of the trial, Elena woke before dawn. She stood in front of her closet for a long time. 3 months ago, she had walked into that courtroom in a thrift store cardigan, playing the part of the defeated ex-wife. Today, she would walk in as herself. She chose a white suit. Tailored. Elegant. The kind of suit her grandmother would have worn to a board meeting. She put on the Vance family pearls, the ones that had been locked in a safety deposit box for years, waiting for a moment that deserved them. She looked at herself in the mirror. "You've got this," she said to her reflection. "You've already done the hard part." The federal courthouse in downtown Atlanta was surrounded by news vans and reporters. Elena pushed through the crowd without stopping, Harrison Cole clearing a path beside her. Inside the courtroom, she took her seat in the front row of the gallery. The room filled slowly. FBI agents, attorneys, journalists, and curious onlookers who wanted to witness the fall of a titan. And then Darnell was brought in. Elena barely recognized him. 3 months in county jail had stripped away everything that had made him Darnell Carter, the real estate mogul. The designer suits were gone, replaced by an orange jumpsuit. The confident swagger was gone, replaced by the shuffling gait of a man in shackles. He had lost weight, at least 20 pounds. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow. He looked old. For a moment, Elena felt something that surprised her. Not satisfaction. Not triumph. Something closer to pity. This was the man who had told her he loved her on their 3rd date. The man who had cried when she agreed to marry him. The man who had held her hand and promised they would build something together. That man was gone. Maybe he had never existed at all. Maybe he had only ever been a mask that Darnell wore when it suited him. The judge entered. Judge Harold Stevens, a no-nonsense federal judge known for his strict sentencing. "All rise." Everyone stood. "Be seated. We are here today for the sentencing of Darnell Marcus Carter, who has pleaded guilty to 17 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bribery of public officials, 3 counts of reckless endangerment, and 2 counts of obstruction of justice." Guilty. Darnell had pleaded guilty 2 weeks ago, avoiding a trial that would have exposed even more of his crimes. His lawyer had negotiated the plea in exchange for dropping additional charges, including the assault on Elena, which she had agreed to set aside if he cooperated fully with investigators. "Mr. Carter," Judge Stevens said, looking over his glasses at the defendant, "do you have anything you wish to say before I deliver your sentence?" Darnell's lawyer whispered something to him. Darnell shook his head. Mr. Carter, the court is offering you an opportunity to speak. Slowly, Darnell stood. His shackles clinked. His voice cracked. He cleared his throat. I made mistakes. I know that now. I was so focused on success, on building something, that I lost sight of what mattered. He paused, and Elena saw him glance toward the gallery, toward her. I hurt people. People who trusted me. People who... He stopped, swallowed hard. I hurt my wife. My ex-wife. Elena. I told myself she didn't understand business, that she was holding me back. But the truth is, she was the only honest thing in my life, and I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand looking at her and seeing what I should have been. Elena felt her chest tighten. I'm not asking for sympathy, Darnell continued. I don't deserve it. I wanted to say on the record that none of this was her fault. She tried to make me better. I was the one who chose to get worse. He sat down heavily. The courtroom was silent. Judge Stevens made a note, then looked at the gallery. Is there anyone who wishes to make a victim impact statement? Harrison touched Elena's arm. You don't have to do this. I know. Elena stood. She walked to the podium at the front of the courtroom. She could feel every eye on her, the reporters, the attorneys, the FBI agents, and Darnell watching her with something that might have been shame or might have been fear. Your Honor, Elena began, I was married to Darnell Carter for 5 years. During that time, I believed I was building a life with someone who loved me. I was wrong. She paused, gathering herself. But I'm not here to talk about our marriage. I'm here to talk about the 847 people who were evacuated from their homes because of Darnell's greed. I've met many of them over the past 3 months. I've heard their stories. She pulled a piece of paper from her pocket. Maria Gonzalez, 73 years old. She lived in Carter Pines for 8 years. When the building was evacuated, she had to leave behind her cat because the emergency shelter didn't allow pets. The cat died at the county animal shelter 3 days later. Maria told me it was the only family she had left. Elena's voice wavered, but she continued. James and Patricia Washington. Married 52 years. They had finally paid off all their debts and were looking forward to a quiet retirement. Now they're living in their daughter's basement trying to figure out how to start over at 75 years old. Deshaun Miller, single father of 3. He worked double shifts to afford the rent at Carter Gardens because he wanted his kids to grow up somewhere safe, somewhere stable. When I told him the building had structural issues that Darnell knew about, he started crying. He said he had trusted Darnell because Darnell was black like him. He said he thought Darnell would never endanger his own community. Elena looked at Darnell. You didn't just steal money, Darnell. You stole people's trust. You stole their sense of safety. You stole years of their lives that they'll never get back. She turned back to the judge. I'm not asking for vengeance, Your Honor. Vengeance won't give Maria her cat back. It won't give the Washingtons their retirement. It won't give Deshaun Miller's children their sense of security. But I am asking for justice. Real justice. Not the kind that can be bought or negotiated or plea bargained away. The kind that sends a message to every person in this city who thinks they can profit from other people's suffering. Darnell Carter knew his buildings were unsafe. He knew people could die, and he chose his profit over their lives. That choice should have consequences that matter. She stepped back from the podium. Thank you, Your Honor. She returned to her seat. Harrison squeezed her hand. Judge Stevens was quiet for a long moment. Mr. Carter, he finally said. I have been on this bench for 23 years. I have seen every kind of criminal you can imagine: murderers, drug dealers, con artists, thieves. But in all my years, I have rarely seen a case that troubled me as much as yours. He leaned forward. You are an intelligent man, an educated man, a man who had every advantage in life. And you chose to use those advantages to exploit the most vulnerable people in our community. Low-income families, elderly people on fixed incomes, single parents trying to give their children a better life. You didn't just break the law, Mr. Carter. You broke a sacred trust. The trust that people place in the buildings where they live. The trust that they will be safe when they close their doors at night. 3 of your buildings were found to have critical structural failures. One of them, Carter Pines, was days away from potential collapse when it was evacuated. If Ms. Marsh had not uncovered your crimes when she did, we might be here today discussing mass casualties instead of financial fraud. Darnell's head dropped. It is the judgment of this court that you be sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. A murmur went through the courtroom. You will also be required to pay full restitution to all affected families, an amount to be determined by forensic accountants, but estimated at over $23 million. Your remaining assets will be liquidated to satisfy this obligation. Additionally, you are permanently barred from working in real estate construction or any industry involving public safety. Judge Stevens removed his glasses. Mr. Carter, you built your empire on the backs of people who trusted you. Today, that empire ends. I hope that in the years ahead you will find some way to make peace with what you've done. But I doubt the people you hurt will ever be able to do the same. He picked up his gavel. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Marshals moved forward to escort Darnell out. As they lifted him from his seat, he turned one last time toward Elena. Their eyes met. For 5 years, she had tried to read those eyes, tried to understand what lay behind them. Now, finally, she could see clearly. There was nothing there, no remorse, no understanding. Just the hollow calculation of a man who was still, even now, trying to figure out how to turn this situation to his advantage. Elena, Darnell called out as the marshals pulled him toward the door. Elena, I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. She didn't respond. I loved you. His voice cracked with desperation. Whatever else you think, I loved you. Elena stood up. She looked at him with an expression that was neither angry nor sad, just tired. No, Darnell, she said quietly. You loved what I could do for you. There's a difference. They took him away. The courtroom erupted in noise, reporters shouting questions, attorneys conferring with each other, spectators discussing what they had just witnessed. But Elena didn't hear any of it. She walked out of the courtroom, through the chaos of the hallway, past the reporters screaming her name, and out into the autumn sunshine. Harrison caught up to her on the courthouse steps. Elena, are you all right? She took a deep breath of the cool October air. I don't know, she said honestly. I thought I would feel something. Relief, satisfaction, closure. But I just feel empty. That's normal. You've been running on adrenaline for 3 months. Now it's over and your body doesn't know what to do. Is it over? Really? The criminal case is. The civil suits will take years. The families will need ongoing support. Your foundation has a lot of work ahead. Elena nodded slowly. But Darnell is going to prison, and the people he hurt are going to be compensated, and 3 buildings full of families are no longer in danger. That matters, doesn't it? It matters more than you know. A reporter broke through the security perimeter and thrust a microphone in Elena's face. Ms. Marsh, how do you feel about the verdict? Do you think 18 years is enough? Elena looked at the reporter. She was young, couldn't be more than 25. Probably her first big story. I think justice isn't about years, Elena said. It's about accountability. Darnell Carter spent his whole life avoiding accountability. Today, that ended. Do you have any message for the families who were affected? Elena paused. Yes, she said. I do. I want them to know that they're not alone, that what happened to them matters, and that there are people who will keep fighting for them even when the cameras are gone and the headlines move on. What about Darnell? Any message for him? Elena thought about it. I hope he uses his time to become the man I once thought he was, she said finally. But I'm not going to hold my breath. She turned and walked down the courthouse steps, leaving the reporters behind. 2 weeks later, Elena sat in Harrison Cole's office, signing papers. And this one transfers the remaining Carter development properties to the receivership. Harrison said, sliding a document across his desk. Once the forensic accountants are done, anything left over will go to the restitution fund. Elena signed. And this one finalizes the Safe Home Foundation as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. You are officially a charitable foundation. Elena signed. And this one? Harrison hesitated. What? This one is the deed to your grandmother's house in Boston. She left it to you in the trust, but it's been maintained by a property management company. You've never seen it. Elena took the document. She hadn't thought about the house. There had been so much else to deal with. What's it like? It's beautiful. A brownstone in Beacon Hill. Your grandmother lived there for 60 years. She always said she hoped you would raise your children there someday. Elena felt a lump in her throat. I don't have children. I know, but you have time. You're only 42. Your whole life is ahead of you. She signed the deed and set the pen down. Harrison, can I ask you something? Of course. Did you know about Darnell before any of this came out? Harrison was quiet for a long moment. I suspected, he said finally. Your grandmother suspected too. It's why she structured the trust the way she did to protect you in case the marriage fell apart. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed us? Elena thought about it. Thought about the woman she had been 5 years ago, so in love, so eager to believe the best about the man she had married. No, she admitted. I wouldn't have. Margaret said you needed to discover the truth for yourself. She said you were too smart to stay fooled forever and too strong to stay broken once you found out. She said that. Those were her exact words. Harrison smiled. She was right as usual. Elena stood up and walked to the window. The Atlanta skyline spread out before her, the city she had called home for 20 years. The city where she had met Darnell, married him, built a life with him, and finally broken free. I'm thinking about leaving, she said. Leaving Atlanta. For a while, maybe moving to Boston, living in the house my grandmother left me, starting fresh somewhere that doesn't remind me of him every time I turn a corner. That might be healthy. But I don't want to abandon the foundation. The families still need support. You can run a foundation from anywhere. We have this magical invention called the internet. Elena laughed. It felt strange she couldn't remember the last time she had laughed. I'll think about it. She turned back to Harrison. Thank you. For everything. For believing in me when no one else did. For being there when I needed someone. Your grandmother was my dearest friend Elena. Looking after you is the least I can do to honor her memory. On her way out of the building, Elena's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Sarah Mitchell, Darnell's former office manager, the one he had fired when she got pregnant. Just saw the news about the sentencing. I hope you're doing okay. I heard you're starting a foundation. If you ever need someone to help run it, I'm looking for work. I understand if you don't want anything to do with anyone from Carter Development, but I wanted to reach out. Either way, thank you for what you did. My son and I lived in Carter Gardens for 2 years before I got the job at the company. We could have been in that building when it collapsed. Elena read the message twice. Then she typed back, Can you meet for coffee tomorrow? I think we have a lot to talk about. The reply came immediately. I would like that. Thank you. Elena smiled as she walked out into the autumn sunshine. For the first time in longer than she could remember, the future felt like something to look forward to, rather than something to survive. 1 year later, the Safe Home Foundation had helped relocate over 1,200 families. Elena stood at the window of her new office, watching the Boston skyline glitter in the early morning light. Snow was falling gently outside the first snow of December, dusting the brownstones of Beacon Hill like powdered sugar. Her grandmother's house had become her sanctuary. She had kept most of Margaret's furniture, her books, her photographs. It felt like being wrapped in a warm embrace every time she walked through the door. But the house was also her headquarters now. The third floor had been converted into offices for the Safe Home Foundation, a small but dedicated team that had grown from just Elena to 15 full-time employees and dozens of volunteers. Sarah Mitchell knocked on the open door. "Elena, the Atlanta team is on the line. They want to update you on the Carter Gardens redevelopment. Put them through to the conference room. I'll be there in 5 minutes." Sarah nodded and disappeared. She had become Elena's right hand over the past year, brilliant, organized, and fiercely loyal. The woman Darnell had discarded because she dared to have a family was now helping to rebuild what he had destroyed. There was poetry in that, Elena thought. She gathered her notes and headed to the conference room. On the wall, a framed photograph caught her eye, the ribbon-cutting ceremony at the new Carter Gardens, renamed Hope Gardens, after the community voted on it. 300 families had moved back in last month. The building had been completely gutted and rebuilt to code. This time, every inspection was legitimate. Every contractor was vetted. Every penny was accounted for. It had cost Elena $23 million of her own money. She didn't regret a single cent. The conference call was routine construction updates, tenant satisfaction surveys, a small issue with the heating system that was already being resolved. Elena listened, asked questions, and signed off after 30 minutes. As she was leaving the conference room, her phone buzzed. Harrison Cole. "Harrison, it's been a while." "Elena, how are you settling in up there? Has Boston frozen you solid yet?" "Not yet. Ask me again in February." He laughed. "I'm calling with news. I thought you'd want to hear it directly from me." Something in his tone made Elena pause. "What kind of news?" "Darnell filed an appeal last week. His new lawyer is arguing that his guilty plea was coerced and that he didn't receive adequate legal counsel." Elena felt her stomach tighten. "Will it work?" "Not a chance. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The judge who handled his case has already denied the motion. But I wanted you to hear it from me before you saw it on the news." "Thank you, Harrison. I appreciate that. There's something else." "What?" "Beatrice Carter was arrested yesterday." Elena sat down slowly. "Darnell's mother. For what?" "Remember those consulting payments we found in the Project Greenlight files, $50,000 a month, to Beatrice Carter consulting for interior design services?" "I remember." The FBI finally traced the money. It wasn't just money laundering. Beatrice was actively involved in the bribery scheme. She was the one who made the initial contact with James Holloway, the building inspector. Apparently, they went to the same church. Elena closed her eyes. Of course Beatrice had been involved. The woman who had looked down her nose at Elena for 5 years, who had called her peasant food and criticized her housekeeping, she had been elbow deep in her son's crimes the entire time. What's she facing? 5 to 10 years. She's 72 years old. If convicted, she'll likely die in prison. Elena didn't know how to feel about that. Beatrice had been cruel to her. She had raised Darnell to believe he was entitled to everything. She had participated in crimes that endangered hundreds of lives. But she was also a 72-year-old woman who was about to lose everything. "Elena, are you still there?" "I'm here. I'm just processing." "There's one more thing. Beatrice asked to see you." "What?" "She's out on bail pending trial. She contacted my office this morning asking if you would be willing to meet with her. She said she has something to tell you. After everything she did, after the way she treated me, she wants to meet." "I told her representative that I would pass along the message, but that I doubted you'd be interested." Elena was quiet for a long moment. "Set it up," she said finally. "Elena, you don't have to do this. You owe her nothing." "I know. But I need to see her. I need to understand how someone becomes what she became." Harrison sighed. "I'll make the arrangements, but I'm coming with you. I wouldn't have it any other way." 3 days later, Elena flew back to Atlanta. Beatrice was staying at her sister's house in Buckhead, a modest ranch home that was a far cry from the mansion she had lived in during Darnell's glory days. She answered the door herself, which surprised Elena. No housekeeper, no assistant. Just an old woman in a cardigan looking smaller than Elena remembered. "Elena." Beatrice's voice was hoarse. "Thank you for coming." "Mrs. Carter." "Please, call me Beatrice. After everything, I think we're past formalities." She led Elena and Harrison into a small living room. Family photographs lined the walls, Darnell as a baby. Darnell graduating from high school. Darnell shaking hands with the mayor. A shrine to a man who was now rotting in federal prison. "Would you like tea? My sister has some nice chamomile." "I'm not here for tea, Beatrice. You said you had something to tell me." Beatrice nodded slowly. She sat down on a worn sofa, her hands trembling in her lap. "I've had a lot of time to think," she said. "Since Darnell's arrest, since my own arrest. Time I never had before when I was too busy maintaining appearances and pretending everything was fine." "And what conclusions have you reached?" Beatrice looked up. Her eyes were wet. "I ruined him, Elena. My son. I ruined him." Elena didn't respond. "When Darnell was young, his father left us. Just walked out one day and never came back. Left us with nothing. No money, no support, no explanation. Just gone." She paused, gathering herself. "I was so angry, so humiliated. I swore that Darnell would never be weak like his father. I pushed him. Every day I pushed him. Better grades, better jobs, more success, more money. I told him that the only thing that mattered in this world was winning. That nice guys finished last. That if he wasn't the one doing the exploiting, he would be the one getting exploited." "You taught him to see people as transactions," Elena said quietly. "Yes." Beatrice's voice broke. "I taught him that love was weakness, that trust was foolishness, that the only person he could rely on was himself." She wiped her eyes. "When he met you, I was terrified. You were so different from the women he usually dated. You were kind, genuine. You actually loved him for who he was, not what he could give you." "And that scared you?" "It scared me because I knew he would destroy you. I knew he would take your love and twist it until there was nothing left, because that's what I taught him to do." Elena felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet, maybe not ever. But something like understanding. "Why did you get involved in the bribery scheme?" Beatrice laughed bitterly. "Because he asked me to. Because for the first time in 30 years, my son needed me for something. And I was so desperate to be needed that I didn't care what it was." She looked at Elena with something like desperation. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Elena. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. For how I treated you. For what my son did to you. For all of it." Elena studied the old woman in front of her. A year ago, Beatrice Carter had marched into her office demanding money, calling her a gold digger, threatening to destroy her. Now she was a broken shell of a person facing prison and disgrace, and the complete destruction of everything she had ever valued. "I appreciate you telling me this, Beatrice," Elena said finally. "But I need you to understand something." "What?" "Your apology doesn't change what happened. It doesn't give those families back the years of their lives that were endangered. It doesn't give me back the 5 years I spent believing I wasn't good enough." "I know. Let me finish." Elena's voice was firm but not cruel. "You raised Darnell to be a predator. You participated in his crimes. And now you're facing the consequences of those choices. That's not my doing. That's cause and effect." Beatrice nodded, tears streaming down her face. "But I will tell you this," Elena continued. "I'm not going to carry anger toward you for the rest of my life. I spent 5 years being small and quiet and resentful, and it almost destroyed me. I'm not doing that again." She stood up. "I hope you find peace, Beatrice. I really do. But I can't be the one to give it to you. That's something you're going to have to find for yourself." She walked out without looking back. In the car, Harrison was quiet for a long moment. "That was incredibly gracious of you," he finally said. "It wasn't gracious. It was necessary." Elena watched the Atlanta suburbs roll by outside the window. "I couldn't move forward while I was still carrying all that anger. It was like dragging chains behind me everywhere I went. Your grandmother would be proud." "I hope so." 6 months later, Elena stood at a podium in front of 500 people. The ballroom of the Four Seasons Boston was decorated in white and gold. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Waiters in black ties circulated with champagne and canapes. It was the inaugural gala of the Safe Home Foundation, 2 years ago. Elena said, her voice carrying through the microphone. "I walked into a courtroom with $38 in my bank account and a husband who had spent 5 years telling me I was worthless." A murmur went through the crowd. That man was Darnell Carter. Some of you knew him. Some of you did business with him. Some of you probably thought he was a visionary, a success story, living proof that the American dream was alive and well. She paused. But Darnell's success was built on lies, on bribery, on cutting corners that put hundreds of families at risk. And when those lies were exposed, he tried to destroy the evidence rather than face the consequences. Elena looked out at the sea of faces, business leaders, philanthropists, politicians, community organizers, people with power, people who could make a difference. I'm not telling you this to seek sympathy. I'm telling you because it's important to understand how easy it is to look successful while being completely rotten on the inside. She clicked to the next slide. Photographs appeared: families moving into Hope Gardens, children playing in newly renovated community spaces, elderly residents sitting on clean, safe porches. The Safe Home Foundation has helped relocate 1,247 families in the past 18 months. We've partnered with 32 community organizations across 6 states. We've established a legal fund that has recovered over $4 million in wrongfully held security deposits. But we're just getting started. She clicked again. A map appeared showing red dots across the country. There are an estimated 11 million Americans living in substandard housing right now. Buildings with structural issues, electrical hazards, lead paint black mold. And in too many cases, the landlords who own these buildings know about the problems and do nothing. That's what we're fighting. Not just one corrupt real estate developer, but a system that allows vulnerable people to be exploited by those with power. Elena stepped out from behind the podium. "I was lucky. I had an inheritance I didn't know about. I had a lawyer who believed in me. I had the education and resources to fight back. Most people don't have those advantages. Most people are just trying to survive. That's why we need your help, your donations, your expertise, your connections. Every dollar you give tonight goes directly to helping families who have nowhere else to turn." She looked directly into the audience. "I spent 5 years being quiet, staying small, not making waves. And it nearly destroyed me. I'm done being quiet. I'm done staying small, and I'm asking you to join me." The applause started slowly, then built to a standing ovation. Elena smiled. Not the polite, practiced smile she had worn as Darnell's wife. A real smile, the smile of a woman who had finally found her voice. After the gala, Elena stood on the hotel's rooftop terrace, looking out at the Boston skyline. The night was clear and cold, stars visible even through the city lights. Sarah found her there. "Elena, the preliminary numbers are in. We raised $2.3 million tonight. That's almost double what we projected." "That's wonderful, Sarah. Thank you for everything you did to make this happen." "Thank me. This was all you. That speech, I've never seen anything like it. You had them in the palm of your hand." Elena shook her head. "It wasn't me. It was the families, their stories, their courage. I just told the truth." Sarah came to stand beside her at the railing. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Do you ever regret it? Any of it? The marriage, the divorce, All the pain you went through. Elena thought about it. I regret the years I spent believing I wasn't enough. I regret every time I stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. I regret letting Darnell convince me that my contributions didn't matter. She turned to Sarah. But I don't regret the pain. The pain taught me who I was. It showed me what I was capable of. Without everything that happened, I might have spent my whole life being someone else's accessory. And now I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. 3 weeks later, Elena visited her grandmother's grave in Mount Auburn Cemetery. The headstone was simple, just Margaret Chen Whitmore's name, her dates, and a single line of text. She lifted as she climbed. Elena placed fresh flowers on the grave. White roses, Margaret's favorite. I wish you could see what we've built, Nana, she said softly. 1,200 families. $2.3 million raised. Partners in 6 states. We're actually making a difference. The wind rustled through the bare branches of the trees. I finally understand what you meant when you used to say that money was just a tool. You never cared about being rich. You cared about what you could do with it, how you could help people, how you could leave the world better than you found it. She touched the cold stone. Darnell never understood that. He thought money was the point. He thought success meant having more than everyone else. But you knew better. You always knew better. Elena wiped her eyes. I'm not angry anymore, Nana. Not at Darnell, not at Beatrice, not even at myself for taking so long to see the truth. I'm just grateful. Grateful that you believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. Grateful that you protected me even after you were gone. She stood up. I'm going to keep building, keep helping, keep fighting for people who can't fight for themselves. That's my legacy now. That's what I want to leave behind. She touched the headstone one more time. Thank you, Nana, for everything. As she walked away, Elena felt lighter than she had in years. The weight of the past, the humiliation, the betrayal, the pain. It was still there, but it no longer defined her. It was just part of her story, a chapter that had ended so a new one could begin. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Good news. The Gonzalez family just got approved for the new apartment. Maria is bringing her new cat to visit the office tomorrow. She wants to thank you personally. Elena smiled. Maria Gonzalez, the 73-year-old woman who had lost her cat during the Carter Pines evacuation. Elena had helped her find a new apartment, adopt a new cat, rebuild her life. It was a small thing in the grand scheme of things. One family among thousands. But it mattered. Every single family mattered. Elena typed back, "Tell her I'll have the coffee ready." She walked to her car, started the engine and headed back to Boston. There was work to do, families to help, a foundation to run, a life to live. Darnell Carter had tried to convince her she was worthless. He had waved her $38 bank statement in front of a courtroom full of people. He had laughed at her, mocked her, tried to crush her. But Elena Marsh was still standing. She had walked into that courtroom a victim and walked out a force of nature. She had taken everything Darnell threw at her and transformed it into something beautiful, something lasting, something real. The woman he had called worthless had saved 847 families, had built a foundation that would help thousands more, had turned her pain into purpose and her anger into action. Elena Marsh didn't just survive her story, she became the hero of it. And that was the incredible story of Elena Marsh, the woman who walked into a divorce court with $38 and walked out with an empire built on truth instead of lies. She proved that real strength isn't about how much money you have in your bank account or how loud you can talk in a courtroom. Real strength is knowing your worth even when everyone around you is trying to tear you down. Darnell Carter thought he was untouchable because he had a fancy suit and a loud voice. But he forgot the oldest rule in the book. The person you dismiss today might be the one who holds your future in their hands tomorrow. Elena didn't just get revenge, she got redemption. She proved that the quiet woman everyone underestimates might just be the one holding everything together. And when she finally stopped carrying the weight of a man who never deserved her, she didn't fall. She flew. What do you think? Did Darnell deserve 18 years in prison, or should it have been longer? And what would you have done if your mother-in-law showed up asking for money after helping destroy your marriage? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. If this story moved you, smash that like button and subscribe. We post new stories every day, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Because remember, the truth always comes out in the end. And karma never forgets an address.